Welcome, welcome to Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I am your host, Megan, and my amazing co-host is...
I'm Amanda.
Hello. We are the place you come when you need some reassurance that secular and progressive do in fact exist in the homeschool world. Or if you need to be reminded that most social media influencers aren't actually showing you their real life. We don't polish our lives and tweak the shit out of everything so that you only see the highlight reel. You will get authenticity, messy, imperfect us week after week.
Yes, absolutely right. Because the last thing that any of us need is something else making us feel like we've dropped yet another ball or failed yet another unspoken parenting test, right? I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm holding on and I'm good. Thank you. Another thing that you're going to get here, progressive views and secular discussion. Honestly, I'm not even really sure where to start on this these days, right? Like, we believe trans rights matter. We believe trans people not only deserve to exist, but that their rights are human rights. DEI isn't a bad thing. And frankly, neither is PBS or public libraries. I never thought that this would be a progressive statement in the United States, but we believe the Constitution should be followed. And due process is essential for everyone. Yeah. The list goes on and on. There's so many things we could do, but those seem to be the things that are kind of like most under attack at the time of this recording. So we'll put those out there.
Yeah, seriously, dude. I mean, leave Big Bird alone. I was raised on Big Bird and Snuffy and Mr. Cooper and all the, just leave them alone. Oh, who knew when we started this podcast that being a progressive homeschooler would end up meaning that nearly every day would be a civics lesson? I mean, this is all we do in our household, right? But no matter how bad things get, it's important to take some time for laughs and maybe a little bit of commiseration at the same time. So this week's topic should provide just that opportunity. We are going to be talking about the best and worst homeschooling advice people have ever received. But first, we start every episode with recaps of our weeks. It's part of our Keeping It Real vibe here at Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. So what's going on in your world, Amanda?
Yeah, it's one of those things. Things are pretty smooth here. And so we're talking about, we keep it real. And I've had kind of like a few weeks where it's like, it's not that bad. We are in another place. If you're watching the live video or if you're watching the actual video version on YouTube or whatever, you can see that I'm in a hotel room. So we'll see how well that works. But we have a field trip at an amusement park tomorrow. We were able to set up a STEM discussion of like energy and motion something. So that's fun. I think the biggest struggle for us, and if you're listening and you're like, this is not my kid, please do not feel bad about that. The biggest struggle for us is when we have these weeks where like 2 of the days are kind of out for fun field trip learning stuff. My kiddo puts a lot of pressure on himself to do all of his regular work in, 2.5 days so that he can just have fun. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, we do what we do, what we can, just do like your regular stuff each day. And we'll have a couple off days. Like, he's not, right? We've talked a lot about the fact that he needs that structure and he wants that structure. And he's not about like, just don't worry about it. So I'm trying to manage that for everyone involved. But yeah, for the most part, things are good. We're hatching some chicks. So by the time we record again, I should have chickens. Like, I don't even know, baby chicks, not actual chickens. But so that's pretty exciting. It might be really noisy the next time we record because they live in my incredibly small podcast studio. So we'll see how that works. Yeah. So some fun things happening.
Very nice. I'm excited. Chickens are going to really, I think, take this to the next level. It's going to be good.
Yeah. I've heard they're incredibly noisy, right? Like when they're tiny. So we'll see how that goes. Like they're like real babies, right? They sleep a ton and then they're noisy as shit when they're awake. So yeah, we'll see. So how about you, Megan? What do you got going on?
This week was better than last week. Last week I shared that I ugly cried twice. So, those weeks exist. And so last week it was funny. So we're on a world schooling trip right now. We're at a pop-up hub in Budapest, and it's kind of the end of year one, and there's prom and all that kind of stuff. And this time last week, I was like, I'm leaving. I'm going home, right? My daughter was having a blast. I was like, go find a couch to surf. I'm leaving. The boys and I are leaving. We're all going home. And I couldn't, only because changing our flights would cost a fortune. And in a way, I'm glad I stayed, because like you shouldn't make decisions in a moment like that when you're ugly crying and frustrated. And so we've ended up having a lovely week. We've met people from all over the world on different journeys and homeschooling in different ways and all that good kind of stuff. And so it's been lovely. I'm glad that I wasn't able to go. I'm still really eager to go home. Like, I'm ready to be back in my space and whatever. But I'm glad that we were forced to stick it out based on airline policy. So it was good. We've had game club every night. I mean, like 50 people at game clubs every night. And tomorrow night is prom. So that'll be exciting. My daughter's got, like, the perfect dress picked out, and there's an energy in the air for prom. So yeah, it's good. I mean, it's just been pretty awesome. We've done kind of a mix of social and historical and all that kind of stuff this week. And I found good pizza, which is always like, I live for pizza. It like my, like the base of my food guide pyramid is pizza, and found good pizza this week. So that was exciting. So yeah, overall a much better week than last week. So that was good.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think, for anyone who's listening and doesn't travel for longer periods of time, it's important to know that for most people who travel for long periods of time, or for people who move kind of a long distance away, there's this inevitable crash after the initial honeymoon, right? Of like, what have I done? I want to go home right now. And it's, sometimes going home does help, and a lot of times it doesn't, or you just can't make it work. And it almost always sorts itself out, right? But I'm sorry that you had one of those moments. Been there, done that lots of times. It's always hard.
Yeah, I'm like, oh. So, but it'll be, Sunday will be here before we know it. And I'm like, I'm glad we stayed. We've had a good week. I'm still ready to go home, but it wasn't like torture staying the extra week. Like, it worked out okay. So, but I will be very excited to head for the airport on Sunday. I'm gonna leave our Airbnb that's not amazing and just go back and be in our own space and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be good. But in the meantime, let's talk about the best and worst homeschool advice we've ever received.
Yeah. So I think we should start with the worst advice we've heard. I'm sure that most of us have heard some variation of pretty much all of these lumps of coal. But it's that thing, like, sometimes it is nice to commiserate with friends, right? Like, there's a reason misery loves company is a saying. So let's talk about some of them. I know for me personally, the worst advice that I got when we were just starting out was to make sure that we set our alarm clock at some like obscene time equivalent to the time that we would have to get up for public school, and to make sure that we got up and we got dressed before we started our day. Like, we needed that like routine and schedule, right?
Oh my gosh,
I
that
love your
sounds
face.
awful. I'm like, yeah, no.
Right.
Oh,
That's it. Like, first off, like, anyone who's listened knows we've talked about it. The vast majority of us know that the research says like all kids need more sleep than what they're getting for the most part, especially once they start school. And then further research shows that like early school start times are detrimental. So I have no idea why, if you're choosing to homeschool, you would be like, let's make sure we keep that thing from public school. It's detrimental and it's bad for their health and it doesn't help with their learning. Let's make sure we do that. And then like with the getting dressed, I can see how that works for some people, right? I can see like a psychological thing. I know my husband definitely prefers to like get up and have a shower and put his clothes on and start his work day, and it helps him like focus and all of that. But like my kiddo and I, we are definitely daytime pajama people.
mhm. Yeah. I mean, we're recording late in the night for me because our days at the hub are pretty full. And so it was my preference to record late. Again, I like to specify that so that people are, when they're listening, they're not like, geez, Amanda's like such an ass that she doesn't flex at all, so that Meagan doesn't have to record until like 4 a.m. And it's like, no, sometimes, number one, it was my choice to just be like, I'm going to Europe. And number two, yeah, my day was full. And so this was what was available. So I was kind of like, I didn't really nap right before we started, but I was definitely snuggled in bed and just kind of having a recharge, And I was like, is pantsless podcasting a thing? Like, is that a thing? You know? And I was like, yeah, I'm
We have full
definitely not
pants
about
Sunday. I mean, you go for it. As long as you need to stand up for some reason while we're recording, who cares?
Exactly right. You know, I mean, we talked way back when in our initial, like our very first episode about determining your why you homeschool. And one of my whys was that I didn't like starting every single day feeling like I'd been shot out of a cannon. Like, who likes starting their day that way? And so for me, this just kind of does that. But I think also in a previous episode, we talked about monochronic and polychronic cultures. And so to your point about like, why would we keep that aspect of schooling? And I think in specifically in more monochronic cultures like America and then other countries like Germany, Japan, things like that, for whatever reason, there's the thing that sleeping in is laziness. And it's so silly because you can accomplish just as much as somebody who wakes up early, but start later in the day or work later into the night. And for whatever reason, our culture sees not getting up and starting the day bright eyed and bushy tailed as laziness and delinquent and derelict and all of these things, right? And it's like, there are plenty of people who just don't function that well in the morning. And that push to do that is counterintuitive for them. So yeah, we're not those people. It's not happening.
Yeah, right. And I mean, so there's another one along the same lines that someone shared, and they got the advice to have their children wear uniforms like during the school day. And so I guess it's like you would create like a homeschool uniform, or maybe like you just buy like the regular school uniforms, but in whatever color you want, and have them wear it.
Like the Von Traps. Like, what the hell is that about?
Right? I mean, like, but they were told, right? Specifically, it was because children will get confused wearing regular clothes at home and doing schoolwork. And I was like, I don't think you're really giving kids enough like credit. I don't know. But there was someone else who said that they were given the advice to make sure their kids called them like Mrs. Amanda or Mrs. Meagan during school hours, and then like mom the rest of the time. I'd never heard of that one. Frankly, I'd never heard of the wear a school uniform at home either. What?
It is so I can't even. I can't. No, I mean, what is that? Well, I mean, so there's two things that pop into my head here, right? And the first is, who is giving this advice? Is it people who've never homeschooled, right? Who are just coming at this from like, you know what I think is going to be essential for your journey? Because I know for my kids, this is how it would be. And it's like, you have no idea what you're talking about. So I wonder sometimes if it's people who don't even homeschool or know anything about homeschooling. Or on the flip side, how many times in Facebook groups do we see people give advice who are brand new to homeschooling? And it'll be like, what should I do for this? And somebody's like, well, we're brand new, but this is what we're doing. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, I love that you're jumping in and you're contributing and all. That's amazing. Like, go rock star. We're so happy to have you as part of the community. But we've talked so many times about the fact that it can take most homeschoolers 1, 2, 3 years to really find their footing. And when you look back at what you did when you first started, you're like, I can't believe we did that. Right. I mean, that made no sense. So like, as amazing as it is that you're like willing to jump in and give advice, like you're also probably not really equipped to be giving solid advice. So I wonder if sometimes that's part of it. People who haven't deschooled, who still have a very boxed in kind of view of education. And these are the people that are spouting off these pieces of advice. But I can't fathom it. But the other thing that pops into my head is, and we've talked about this before, I mean, if you're new to the podcast, Amanda's Miss Curriculum schedule, loves the schedule, her kid loves the schedule, all that kind of stuff. And we are not. That is not how we function. We unschool, we're big on goal setting and planning and things like that, but we are not functioning in that same system, right? And so the other thing too for us is like having school hours versus non-school hours for us isn't the way we function. So
could you imagine your kids like taking a uniform on and off every time they had to hop on a class? Oh, wait a minute. I have to get on an online class. Let me put my uniform back on.
That's it. I mean, it's 1:24 in the morning right now for me, right? One of my
Uh,
kids just finished a class like less than an hour ago because she had one-on-one tutoring and it's just whatever time zone we're in, that's what time it is. And then she was actually supposed to be in another class right now that there'll be a recording available. And she's like, it's 1:30 in the morning and tomorrow's the prom. I'm going to bed. Right. You know, and I was like,
Yeah.
go for it. Like that's the beauty and flexibility of homeschooling. Do that thing. But yeah, I mean, it's just so silly. For us, the idea of having school time versus non-school time for us limits growth potential in my mind. It's like, I did the thing you wanted me to do. I checked all the boxes. I met all of your stupid requirements. Now I'm going to go play Five Nights at Freddy's. And you can't really say anything because I checked your boxes. And so for us, by not delineating school versus non-school, it keeps kind of a spark and a curiosity going all day long. And so for, I can't imagine being like, it is school time. It is not school time. Wear this, call me that. You know, yeah, no, that's not happening.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. We have much more of a structure and schedule, and we have, like our curriculum school time. And I think, I talk about it later on in this episode even, but we've talked about it before too. I actually even have like mom office hours when I'm available to help with like working through the curriculum. But that does not take away from the fact that the whole rest of the day, there's a lot of other learning that's happening. Like
Mhm.
there's a lot of podcast listening and building and creating and writing. And, sometimes we're watching TV shows that don't matter. And even from those TV shows, right now we're watching Castle, like, it's an old TV show that we're watching together as a family, but there's been a ton of things that we've talked about, stuff that came up or things that are different from how it used to be and all of that kind of stuff. And that's all learning. And I feel like if you have this, like, well, you have to call me Miss Amanda when we're learning, like, then in the evening when you're watching a family show and you want to pause the show to talk about something that happened, is your kid like, nah, I won't
Right.
have a conversation with you, like
Mhm.
I would worry about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that. So along those same lines is the idea that you should structure your day like a public school day. Right? It's not so much. If you've listened to any other episodes of our podcast, you know we aren't about this. Even though Amanda is an aggressive academic homeschooler, she's even still not about this either. So in our home, learning happens all day, every day. It ebbs and flows. I mean, we certainly have our times of just silliness, and then we have times of noodling, and we have oodles of reading and learning new things and going down rabbit holes and taking online classes and all that kind of stuff. But we're all over the place as far as what times those occur and the way that they're fitting in with our organic life. So we definitely do not structure our day like a public school day. But I mean, like I said, you're an aggressive academic homeschooler, and even your day isn't, there's no bell. Do you have a bell? You're like, ding, ding, it is now time for math.
Well, I have Alexa. She does that for me sometimes. Let's be real.
Assistant
No.
capable Alexa.
Right. But I mean, you're right. Like we definitely have a lot more structure because that's what works for us. And it's what works for my kiddo. Part of that is based on the timing of online classes. Because we're on the West Coast, most classes happen earlier in the day for us. So we don't run into a lot of evening classes. Really, the latest class we might get is, like a 4 to 5 o'clock class or something like that. So it's not like a huge swing for us for the most part. But my kiddo I just talked about this in a recent episode, protects his afternoons for like this free time and decompression time. It started when he was tiny. We called it quiet, relaxed time because he stopped napping it right when he turned 2 years old. And I was like, oh, mama can't do that. Like, you need to at least go in your room and like give me some time.
I've invented a new thing called quiet, relaxed time.
Yeah. I wish I could take credit for it. I found it somewhere else. And I was like, yes, we're going to do that. That's a great idea. But now he's very much like, no, I can't do that for you. It's my afternoon time. And, that's his time to go and create. And most of the time he's working on personal projects. But even then, he's doing stop motion videos or he's creating something out of Legos because he wants to build a giant back lot because we were just at the Warner Brothers studio. So right now he's trying to build a huge back lot. I'm not sure if he's actually going to use it for anything or if he's just saw one and wants to create it out of his Legos. And that's one of his things, right? That's something he really enjoys doing. And then he's going to be listening to probably Malcolm Gladwell's revisionist history podcast while he's doing it. So he's going to be learning a ton of things. And, where you draw that line, it's a much blurrier thing for us. That said, like I said, I do have those like mom office hours. So he can't come to me at like 4 or 5 in the evening and be like, I want help with my math or my ELA curriculum, right? Like the actual curriculum stuff. I'm like, no, that has to be done by this time, right? And if it's not done, tackle it tomorrow. But like,
Mhm.
I need time for my stuff, or I need time to, handle podcast stuff or to work on creating this or that, or even, some self-care or whatever, if I manage to squeeze that in. But it's one of those things, like it's not necessarily about the school hours so much as it is being, like a stay-at-home mom and kind of working mom, like a part-time, just all of those things and like where I set my own boundaries and time management and things like that.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So neither one of us have a day that looks like public school. Bottom line, right?
No.
Okay, so another tidbit of advice. Someone in our online community said the worst advice that she had gotten was to use curriculum. I mean, I'm an unschooler, so right. I mean, I will say I don't know that curriculum is always necessary, especially if we're talking littles. We have an episode that is one of our top episodes all the time. That's called What the Fuck Did We Do to Kindergarten? And it talks about most preschool and kindergarten standards, especially in the US, not being age appropriate or developmentally appropriate. So for that, yes, I do think that's solid advice, is to not go out there and buy like this huge thing of curriculum. In a group that I'm in the other day, somebody posted 3 screenshots of Amazon carts because it didn't all fit on one. And they were like, I think I've drastically underestimated how much it costs to homeschool. This is what I have picked out for my kindergartner. And I was like, holy crap, do not buy all that stuff for your kindergartner. Thankfully, that was the predominant advice that she got. I was like, okay, good. Remove from cart. I mean, curriculum isn't necessary. Having said that, even as an unschooler, some of my kids are operating under curriculum. It's not stuff that I'm buying, and we're not sitting around the kitchen table, doing it together. It's curriculum that they're doing through classes that they've signed up for online and stuff like that. And it's their choice, and they're happy and they're thriving and they're loving it. So even as an unschooler, curriculum isn't like the devil. But if it's not the right fit for your family, then that's okay, right? You don't have to. If it feels wrong, it probably isn't the right choice for you. Curriculum isn't mandatory. You can homeschool. You can even homeschool, not unschool, but homeschool with goals and objectives and standards, not without curriculum. You don't have to go out and spend a small fortune. You can piece things together and you can do units and projects and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's possible. I don't know that that's like particularly bad advice, universally speaking, like wear uniforms, but for this person, it seems like it was poor advice.
Well, yeah. And also, for the record, you can homeschool with goals and whatever. I cannot. Like, we've talked about that. If you've listened to the podcast at all, like I love curriculum and it works really well for us. Now, when I say I love curriculum, I'm not advocating an all-in-one program or, anything like that. But I think there are tons of great options out there and we definitely piecemeal it together. But yeah, I mean, I'm pro curriculum, so this would not work for me. However, another mom shared that she was told to make sure that whatever she did, she's to start at the first level of whatever curriculum they were going to use, even if it was too easy, to just make sure that they got like all of the foundation. So always start at the first level of a new curriculum. And I was like, okay, like that all right. There are certain times when it is useful to back up a little bit. I have often talked personally about the fact that we found a lot of success with this writing curriculum called Step Up to Writing. And we backed up a couple of years and did parts and pieces to make sure that my kiddo really understood this idea behind the color coding, and we picked some of the more fun aspects and hands-on things, and that's how we got into it and we started it, right? If you were going to do Singapore math, maybe you're going to back up a little and do a few specific things to make sure that your kiddo understands like how they do things and their thought process, because it's a little different. And so to make sure that they get that before you kind of jump in the middle of somewhere. So I do get it. But all of that said, please do not make your kiddo like trudge through something that is so boring and so like, why do I have to do this? This makes no sense, right? Like the beauty of homeschooling is that you get to take your kiddo into consideration. Where are they at? What do they need work on? And you can work on those specific pieces and find it's not easy, right? It can be quite hard. It takes a lot of work to find where they're at in each thing, especially if they were in some other kind of like school situation before you started homeschooling, and like finding exactly what they know and what they don't, and that sort of thing to build on. But like, it's so worth it. You can truly customize their education to exactly what they know and what they need to learn. Like, don't start at the beginning of the curriculum just because it starts at third grade or just because it starts in kindergarten.
Yeah, that doesn't sound ideal to me. Sorry, if you're watching the video, I was multitasking. I swear I was listening while also simultaneously shushing the dog. Our Airbnb here is musty, like ridiculously musty. It's just, ugh. I mean, I've bought room freshener, which typically I hate using any of that stuff and whatever. And so I have all the windows kind of cracked open just to try to get a little life breathed into this place. And girlfriend can hear people in the corridor coming home from a night of partying and whatever. And she's like,
How
so there
dare
are people in my building. So a little shushing while you were talking, forgive me. Yeah. So that doesn't sound ideal for me, though. I was very much paying attention while shushing. I can multitask like that. So let's see. Continuing with our online community feedback on the worst advice that they had gotten along similar lines was someone who was saying to let kids do what they want and they will learn skills when they need to. And another was saying that the worst advice she got was to not worry about teaching the younger kids because they would pick up on what the older kids were learning. So I guess those are two separate things. So I'll crack them in half there, right? Because one, they're quite different to me. I'll do the second one first, I think.
The same, right? Like, okay.
Interesting.
Lay
So
it on
there
me.
you go.
Yeah.
So not worry about teaching the younger kids because they'll pick up on what the older kids are learning. I mean, there's factors to that for me. Like, how old are these younger kids? I mean, if they're like 3 and 4, yeah, I wouldn't be. They're totally soaking up everything that's going on around them, and I wouldn't necessarily worry about that kind of stuff. But if we're talking a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old, and you're like, oh, the 10-year-olds will be fine, they'll figure it out on their own. If your approach is direct instruction or curriculum driven, I wouldn't buy curriculum for the older one and then not for the younger one, thinking they'll figure it out on their own or they'll soak it up through osmosis or something like that. If you're doing instruction for older ones, I would do instruction for younger ones once they reach an age where it makes sense to be schooling them. That's not 3 in my mind. But separate to that is to let kids do what they want and they will learn the skills when they need to. I mean, that's kind of unschooling, right? Like that's the foundation of unschooling. So, and yeah, I mean, it has worked. It's there. It's totally worked in our house. So yeah, I mean, I don't particularly think that that's bad advice, but I can see where if you want more of a structured approach and you're comparing what's going on against state standards, or maybe your homeschool requirements in your state are quite stringent and you need to cross your T's and dot your I's and have a little bit more guidance and a little bit more direction there. But, even with my kids, let them do what they want and they'll learn the skills when they need to. I mean, I'm still here mentoring and steering and kind of doing things in the background, but there's a lot of self-direction in the process. So for us, that's been working pretty darn well. It's more them than it's me.
Yeah. Well, I definitely wondered if that was like one of those disconnects, like a new homeschooling mom who had been told like that the kids will learn the skills when they want, when they need and want. And her being like, so I don't do anything. Like they're not going to learn what they need to learn if I don't do anything. And the reality is, whether you're more academic regressive like us or more unschooling like you, the homeschool parent is still there guiding and occasionally directing your kiddo with this or that or the other thing. No matter what, if your kid actually wants to learn the thing, they're going to learn the thing. They're going to retain so much more than if they're like, they have no desire at all to learn whatever you're forcing them to learn, right? It's a waste of time for everyone for the most part. So, yeah, I wonder if that one has a little bit of a disconnect. I will say
I
when
mean,
I read that, oh, go ahead.
oh no, I was just going to say, I can understand that because I talked about in our first episode when we did the quizzes, the homeschooling quizzes, like what type of homeschooler are you? And I kept getting unschooler. And I was like, that's bananas. I can't just not educate my children because that was my thought of what unschooling was. And I still run into people all the time in Facebook groups who were like, I'm not interested in unschooling. And I'm like, okay. So there's that piece there. But the other thing too, I mean, we've talked about it previously. And for me, there's a huge thing about culture. And I think you were basically describing it before when you were saying like kiddo has more structured time in the morning, but then in the afternoon has this beautiful time frame of creating and learning. And it's this huge organic experience for him. That's the culture that you've created in your home, which is to value time well spent and learning and exploring and going down rabbit holes and being occupied with things that spark your imagination and all of that. And for us, it's very similar, right? There's been this culture built around learning things. And so I feel like too that advice could land very, very poorly if the culture in your home isn't one of curiosity and growth mindset and things like that. And so if it's not, I would focus on building that culture because whether you're going to homeschool like Amanda with curriculum and books and blah, 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 or unschooled like me, both of us still have that same cultural element of every day is a gift and an opportunity to learn new things and explore. And, oh, what are you interested in? And, oh, that's so cool. Let's figure more about that. So if you're missing that cultural piece, if you're buying curriculum, it's going to fall flat. If you're unschooling, it's going to fall flat because if the cultural component isn't there, that's the core issue for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I was going to say the first thing that came to mind when I heard that second bit about not to worry about teaching your younger kids because they'll pick up what the older kids are learning. I have an only. We were foster parents, so we often had more than one kiddo in our house, but they were always younger. But the first thing that came to mind was the fact that my kiddo has definitely learned how to curse correctly and in context. And I did not provide direct instruction on that. So, I mean, they will pick up a lot.
It sure will. I mean, this is the thing, right? We hear all the time, when should I start homeschooling? You've been homeschooling since the day your kid was born. I mean, just through demonstration of everything. Your kid has learned how to walk, how to talk, how to feed themselves, how to dress themselves, how to use the bathroom. That might have been a little direct instruction. There were some sticker charts involved. But, you've been doing this, but look at all the things that they figured out how to do without you buying a curricula. Although I think Amanda said she bought potty training curriculum, but generally speaking, the average bear does not have curriculum for a lot of this stuff. And they're learning it organically through life, through examples, through conversation, all of that kind of stuff. So it's possible. I don't know that you're going to learn organic chemistry that way, but maybe you can. I don't know. That's not something my kids have explored. So maybe you can. I'm not sure. But if you can, tell us in the comments. Like if you've done it and you're like, oh no, my kid totally figured out. I shouldn't say that though, because if you think about it, like, so my daughter is a fiber artist and like the like the protein structure and all that stuff, the fiber and all that she's done. And then all the chemicals that go into like mordants and dyes and stuff like that. Like, yeah, there's been a ton of chemistry involved actually. So I shouldn't say that. Sometimes you don't recognize the parts and pieces because it's all being done as part of like a larger exploration.
Although I suppose one could argue that your youngest has not just learned all of the parts and chemicals and proteins and all of that just because his older sister is doing it, right?
100% valid. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's so true.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So there are so many more we could share. We could probably do like a 5-hour episode just on bad homeschooling advice. Like there's so much out there. And
I like it.
honestly, it would probably be a really good venting session, but no one's really got time for that. So before we dive into the best advice we've gotten, we just want to remind folks that tomorrow, which is Wednesday, May 14th, if you're listening when this actually drops, is our live discussion once a month. Well, we have them multiple times a month, but once a month, we have one that's all about raising and homeschooling neurodiverse kiddos. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, it's over on our Patreon group. You should totally come join us. Like I said, we have several different discussions throughout the month. But again, if you're listening when this episode drops, you should totally join us tomorrow because that is our raising and parenting and homeschooling neurodivergent kids. Plus, OutSchool is sponsoring our live events this month, which means that we are once again able to give away some bookshop.org gift cards during each of our lives. So we're pretty excited about that. Definitely come join us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun to be able to do giveaways and all that kind of stuff. We should look into some more giveaways for all of our followers on Patreon and maybe even over on Instagram. We'll shift and do a little giveaway palooza. Be like, Oprah, you get a bookshop.org gift card. You get a bookshop.org gift card.
Yeah, we totally should. I love a giveaway. Yeah, let's do some, we'll do some offline planning and make that happen. Keep an eye on it.
I like it.
Yeah.
Very nice. All right. So we've had a chance to commiserate over the really crappy advice. Let's get inspired, right? What is the best homeschooling advice you've ever gotten? So for me, it goes back to what we were just talking about, actually, about let the kids be interested and they'll pick up what they need to pick up. So it kind of ties to that. So mine was less about advice and more about a conversation that I had with a fellow homeschool mom that was filled with examples. So I felt in my gut like we needed to make some big changes. We needed to shift towards more unschooling. Some of the stuff that we were doing just felt so against the grain for us in the beginning. But I mean, I had some big fears. We talked in our unschooling episode about how the like, trust the process and it'll all work out is a little frightening. Not like something that's super easy to just latch onto and be like, I have trusted the process. This is going to be great. I'm not worried about this at all. I mean, fast forward many years later, I'm not worried about it because I've seen it work time and time again. But in the beginning, it's pretty freaking scary. So I think
I'm not trusting the process. For anyone who's listening and is like, that sounds insane, I'm with you. I'm not trusting the process. Homeschooling is working just fine. We're having a great time, but I am not trusting the unschool process. So don't feel bad if you're not there.
Or come chat with me and I'll help you get there. Maybe there's hope for Amanda yet. Hey, listen, we put out unit studies that go to our Patreon subscribers and they're on Teachers Pay Teachers. And Amanda's kiddo does them during his downtime because that's his jam. He likes that kind of stuff. And he's like, loves a good unit study. So I'm like, there's hope to win Amanda over with a good unit study. Yeah, I feel like
you keep hoping.
Gonna be good. Next month's gonna be World War II themed, and he's gonna be all over that shit. I'm so excited for him.
He's gonna love it.
Gonna be good. But I mean, all right. So I had these fears before we kind of completely cut the cord to traditional education, and I think they were reasonable fears for anybody who hasn't experienced unschooling firsthand and seen it work firsthand for their own family. It would be scary as hell. I totally get that. So this friend sat with me and gave me examples of how the things that I was worrying about played out in her journey. Because part of it was like, well, what if they don't learn X and one day they need X? And she's like, then the day that they need X, they will Google it, right? Like it's much the same. Like chances are they might not even remember having learned it anyway and would still end up having to Google it because it could be something that was dusty and in the recesses of their mind. And she just kind of gave me some examples with her own kids of things that came up and the ways that they were able to gather any information that they hadn't previously come across and succeed by pulling together the information at the time that they needed it. And so it showed me just this path forward. And honestly, that was 6 or 7 years ago. And she was right about everything. She was totally right. So that was probably the best advice slash just confidence boost that I was ever given.
Okay. I mean, I can see that. I have counter stories, but we're talking about best advice. So we'll leave that and I'll move on to what my best advice was for me personally. So I think for me, it was probably to not be afraid to change things when they aren't working. So it's that thing. I think most homeschoolers, when they first start, especially if you bought any kind of curriculum or you put a bunch of time and effort and you've decided like, we're going to do unit studies or we're going to do this and you've planned how it's going to work. And there's this tendency to think like, we definitely need to stick with things for this whole school year. Like we got to try it for the whole year. And if it doesn't work, then we can change it next year. But like, we have to give it a year and see how it works. And once I let go of that for myself and started, for me, really, I tweak like on a quarterly basis. I was talking to someone else and they were like, really, every quarter? And I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, I'm a big believer in the fact that you've got to give it at least a month. And a lot of times, maybe more like 2 months, just because that first month and our schedule's all over the place and things like, so I'm like, you got to give it the good college try. But on a quarterly basis, if it's not working by the end of a quarter, it's not working. And so, that's fine. Just tweak it. And once I let go of that idea that like things had to last for a whole semester or the whole school year and started tweaking much more regularly, homeschooling got just like loads easier.
But I think that's similar to what we were talking about before about how culturally there's this standard that you have to be up and at 'em in the morning to be a productive member of society, right? And it's the same thing that quitting something, quote unquote, quitting something is cheating, is the lazy way out, isn't going to teach your kids determination, like all this BS, right? And it's this cultural stuff that's just been implanted in us that you can't give up on something because it's setting a terrible precedent for your kids. And it's like, it's okay. I think to your point, you give it the old college try. If it's not working, it's okay to shift gears. It's okay. So yeah, I totally think that's the case. Another one that I think, especially for the newbies, right, that it's super important to hear is that sometimes as veteran homeschoolers, we forget to actually talk about what our days look like. And our days are not spent 6 to 8 hours homeschooling. We are not sitting down from 8 to 2 or 9 to 4 or whatever school hours are in your area and sitting there with books the entire time. So I know you have a super self-driven kiddo who likes to have a full plate. For us as unschoolers, we don't have quote unquote school days or school hours, but I have kids who will go knee deep into stuff for like 10 to 12 hours a day. And that can go on, if it's like some sort of big epic personal project that they're on, that can go on for days or even weeks on end, that they're putting their every waking moment into stuff that they're working on. So, but that's quite different than us sitting there with math textbooks and language arts textbooks and, doing spelling drills and chemistry experiments and all this kind of stuff. Like that is too much to do formal sit down instruction at home.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that, right? And like you said, in our house, it's not always this cut and dry, right? It's not always this straightforward, but a lot of times the actual like curriculum based things and that kind of stuff, 2, maybe 3 hours a day, depending on what the assignment is. Like if he's working on writing a personal narrative or something like, right, it's not going to be a 10 or 15-minute lesson for ELA. Like it's going to take a little bit longer, but the actual curriculum based stuff can be knocked out pretty quickly. That obviously stretches out if there's a math class in there, a Spanish class in there, something like that, right? Like once you add in an hour-long class on one subject, it's no longer like you finished it in 10 or 15 minutes. So the actual organized, like super structured thing, yeah, that's pretty quick. It's not unusual for our overall education day, like learning day, to be many, many hours long. But like I was talking about earlier in the episode, he loves doing all of these different things that I consider school, I mean,
Hmm.
like, it doesn't have to be boring school, but whether it's a true academic class type thing or playing chess or listening to, Malcolm Gladwell or Freakonomics or, any other kind of thought provoking podcast, or honestly, even just reading a really good book. Like
Yeah.
those are all part of learning and education. And so, I mean, I think your day can be very long, but the tedious, like sit and work through stuff, I mean, frankly, it shouldn't feel tedious for the most part ever. But, if you all agree that you want to do math, and sometimes math is like, we got math. I haven't done math in a couple of days. I got to get math done. And you're like, yeah, probably should, like, I know you don't particularly like this unit, but let's just knock it out and move on to the next one. Right. That is not making up 6 to 8 hours a day. That is awful. No one wants that.
Mhm.
And the other thing that I think a lot of people forget is that if you're homeschooling, your kiddo is essentially getting one-on-one tutoring for
Yeah.
everything. So you don't need as much time to cover all of the things. Like it's not the same as a classroom full of 30 kids who are learning it at different levels and need different things and all of the kids talking and the potty breaks and all of that. Like it's just not the same. If you had to do an hour tennis lesson one-on-one, you're going to be significantly more tired after that than an hour group tennis lesson, right? It's the same with school and academics.
Hmm. Good point.
All right. So, one of my favorite pieces of advice that someone shared was to not fret about picking the right curriculum. And like, even as a super pro curriculum lover, right? This spoke to me because I research and I research and I research. And also, still, I always tell people, especially in our coaching sessions, to utilize free samples and trials
Mhm.
because it is so hard to know what curriculum is like really gonna work, right? Like the right curriculum is so subjective for you and your kiddo, and it has to work for both of you for it to actually work for homeschooling. Sometimes the curriculum that everyone else loves is just a dud in your own home. And that's okay because, yeah, sure, do your research, whatever, but there's no guarantee that when you actually crack it open and give it a go, it's actually going to fit, right? Like, and that's the goal. You need it to fit. So make sure it aligns with what you want to teach, obviously, like no flat earth nonsense, no Bible verses to start off your math lesson, like not super whitewashed, all of those kinds of things. But then just try some things and see what works, have a list. And yeah, maybe it is like, well, this is my first choice and I really hope this one works. But know that a second and third and fourth choice is fine. And if the first one just doesn't work, like it doesn't work and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's all true. I mean, I don't have a ton of curriculum usage slash knowledge, but so the next one rings a little bit more true for me, which is how you homeschool doesn't have to look like the way anyone else homeschools. And I mean, that's the foundation of our podcast, right? Is that you do your thing, I do my thing. Our kids are all thriving. It's all good, right? So find out what works best for your kids and your family and do that thing. I mean, if we had to do, what was that movie, The Parent Trap, where the kids like switch places or like Freaky Friday or whatever, like, if we switched places, my children would revolt and your kid would probably be like, I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing right now. I'm just like floating through time and space here, and that's okay. Like, so,
Well, can you give me a list? Can you give me a list?
oh, I can make you a vision board, honey. Let's sit down. We've got this covered.
Where do I check off the vision board?
Oh, that's what the accomplishments folder is for. It's all there. They'll fit right in, I swear. It'll be great. Yeah. Oh my gosh. All right. So along those same lines, another mom said the best advice she got was to stay flexible and adjust your approach based upon your child's needs and learning style. I mean, so true. Hello. I love that. Right. Even within the same family, different kids have different needs. Oh my gosh, my three kids are all so different, right? Just when you think you've got this parenting thing figured out, the next one comes along and is like, no, that's not how I do things. Right? So it means you'll be doing a bit more supporting because this kid needs this and that kid needs that. But it makes homeschooling so much more positive for everyone involved, right? And really, a personalized learning experience is a huge perk of homeschooling. So that's kind of what we signed up for.
Yeah, right. I mean, we joke a lot of times about it having an IEP at home and it not being like the awful IEP, but truly an individualized education plan, right? Each kid gets to have this like exactly what works for them. But I also think that this idea of like staying flexible is especially important if you're going to incorporate any sort of world schooling or road schooling into your homeschool life, right? Like it's still totally possible to use curriculum or attend online classes, but there will be plenty of days where like the jet lag is just too intense for retention, right? Or where the opportunity to walk the Greek temples in person is so much more inspiring and impactful than a math textbook in a hotel room in Greece, right? So, like, just being able to be flexible and roll with it and accommodate, like, you have that flexibility when you choose to homeschool. So, embrace it, no matter how
Yeah,
hard it is.
exactly. And if you're a working homeschool parent that's juggling 400 things, I'm picturing that illustration from the Cat in the Hat where he's got all the stuff up in the air. If that's how you feel any given day, you can totally be homeschooling while you're meal prepping and debriefing on a book while you're driving to a doctor's appointment. I mean, whatever the case might be, you can squeeze things in where you need to and still accomplish what you need to because it's flexible.
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, yeah, bottom line, right? You just have so much more flexibility when you're homeschooling. So make the most of it.
All right, here's one I'm going to guess is a miss for most of us. One mom said that the number one best piece of advice she got was to quote unquote research tuition free online schools for homeschooling. And even the fact that she said this makes us think that she's pushing an affiliate link or has her own online school or something like that. I have a tendency to kind of go down the rabbit hole when you see somebody kind of like drop a link like that. Like I click on their profile and I look and I see how often they're posting it and if it's theirs, and or I'll go to the website and look at the About Us page and I'm like, oh, of course, right? This is your thing. So tuition-free online schools are generally the least flexible of the homeschool options. They don't allow you to customize things. They're missing like 99% of the perks of homeschooling. And so that kind of stings. I also struggle with the idea that you can just plop a kid in front of a computer for X number of hours per day, and it's going to generate this sparked kid that's super interested and passionate and all of that. Like, I don't see it happening. I mean, if this worked, right? I mean, we're in this era of like tearing the public school system apart, even before the inauguration this year, right? Like the public school system has been crumbling and teachers are fleeing and all this kind of stuff, right? If plopping kids in front of a computer and letting them click through video lessons and answer a couple of questions truly worked, don't you think by now the school system would have been like, we could save a lot of money by just bringing in study hall proctors, getting rid of all these teachers, and we put the kids on the computer, they click, click, click. It's great, right? We don't have to do any of the direct instruction. It's all being done. They're not even doing it. So for us to do it, there are some great online resources. Don't get us wrong. There's a place for most things in this world, but for that to be the sole foundation of the right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, look, we've talked about it before. If virtual public school is the thing, right, that allows you to homeschool because of your specific situation, we get it, right? We all do what we can with the time and energy and situations that we have and that we're in. That said, those programs do strip away a lot of the really awesome parts of homeschooling. So, yeah, I totally agree. When I see someone say like, make sure you do online school, I'm like, which one do you get paid to push?
How about there's an influencer that we follow who literally promotes a different one every single month. And you know this person's kids are using 14 different platforms for school. And it's
Yeah.
literally like, oh, there's a check. Yes, I love your program. And it's like,
Yeah.
I just gag every time I see one of her videos pop up because it's just peddling a different program that you know her kids aren't using.
Yeah. That's it. Like, I'm sure Megan wishes I would endorse more because then maybe we'd actually get some checks. But I'm the one, I'm always like, we're only going to talk about the ones that like we've tried and I think are really solid. And I think this is worth checking with your kids on. Like, so yeah, it's a whole
Yeah.
thing.
No, and I mean,
Influencers are
I'm
fun.
certainly not about like whoring ourselves to every company that has an online program. Like, I don't want to do
No,
that either.
yeah.
So
No, I totally get that. I just saying, you're the curriculum lady. Can't you like a few more curriculum? Yeah, it's such a pain in my ass. Okay. All right. So these last two, they really crack me up. I thought these were fun to wrap up the show with. Okay. So one person said, go ahead and panic. Get that out of the way first. And then another person said, slow down. Don't panic. I get that, like, initially they seem like they're completely opposite, but I think at the heart of them, they really mean the same thing, right? Like, a lot of people, when they first decide to homeschool, they get that, like, oh my God, what the hell have I done moment, right? And like, it's okay. It happens to almost everyone. Like, I don't know if anyone else who's listening had this, but I know when I found out that I was finally pregnant, like after medical intervention, and I was, married for years and almost 34 years old, I might add, like, I totally had a few days of panic. Like, okay, I'm officially pregnant. The doctor's done the blood work. The numbers are going the way they're supposed to. And I'm like, what was I thinking? I'm not ready for this. Like a little late now, right, Amanda? For me, in that situation, thankfully, most of my friends had similar sort of like short-term crises around it, right? So it's just that like you've made this huge kind of life-changing decision, and it's okay to initially be like, oh God, maybe I'm not ready. So I think the point of these two pieces of what I think are really awesome advice is that, like, look, it's okay. Feel it, right? Like, go ahead, have your panic, be like, oh, I need a paper bag. I'm going to hyperventilate a little. But then it's just as important to, like, let it go. That, like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to give it a try. There's nothing that we're doing at this point that we can't undo if it doesn't work. We can tweak, we can, do this, we can try that. Just slow down, take deep breaths. You've totally got this. And honestly, there are loads of communities, whether you find a great in-person one where you are, maybe a co-op or something like that. Maybe it's an online community. There are lots on Facebook. There's our Patreon group, whatever those look like. There's podcasts you can listen to. There's coaches out there that can help you, with whatever you're going through. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling stuck, there's so many resources that can help you. It's okay. Slow down. Don't panic after the initial
panic, but don't panic. Yeah.
the initial panic.
Those two like pieces of advice reminded me of like those memes that you see where it's like there's two people and like one of them sees like that the gas gauge has 10 miles left and is like, I still have 10 miles to go. And the other person is like, oh my God, exit the highway right now. And then it always says like, and those two people are married to each other. And like, that is so true because that's totally us, right? Like in my home. And I was like, oh, that's the exact same thing right there. That's pretty funny. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. I like it all. That's been super fun kind of going through like the best and the worst. This was like a train wreck and then a motivational seminar all in one session. It's been good. Before we go, quick reminder. We talked about it briefly before, but we create unit studies that Amanda's kid loves, even though Amanda is not a huge fan of unit studies. They're super great for all ages. They have book recommendations from picture books to young adult novels and nonfiction books. There's, video links and movies for all ages, suggested activities, and it's a huge range, right? Everything from activities for little peanuts all the way up to teens. So if you've got multiple ages and you're looking for something fun for an activity or a holiday or whatever theme or topic you've chosen, there's something in there for all the different ages in your household. This month, for example, we 100% went down a rabbit hole that when I brought up, Amanda was probably like, she's absolutely lost her fucking mind now. But we did an entire unit study on potatoes. And there's a lot to learn about potatoes. We covered everything from the Incan army using freeze-dried potatoes to the impact of the Irish potato famine on immigration, Ireland's dependence upon Great Britain. I mean, it is jam-packed. And then there's just recipes and good stuff and STEM activities and a word search and everything, writing activities, everything you could ever imagine, all centering around potatoes. So our unit study is a perk for a few of our Patreon levels, but you can also buy them on Teachers Pay Teachers if you just want to grab kind of a one-off. And there's great resources for all sorts of free and affordable education. Oh, Teachers Pay Teachers. Okay. But you can also grab them on Teachers Pay Teachers. If you're not familiar, it's an awesome resource for all sorts of free and affordable educational resources. We've got a link down in our show notes, so you can head over to our shop and then branch out and explore all of the wonders of Teachers Pay Teachers. But yeah, that wraps us up. I mean, with each episode, we like to finish with a mantra. So you want to kick off our mantra for us for the week, Amanda?
Sure. Here it is. Bad advice is like glitter. Hard to avoid, but you don't have to let it stick.
I like it.
Yeah. We all know the glitter. All right. Well, there you go. Thanks so much for tuning in this week and giving us a listen. And until next week, happy homeschooling.
Have a great day.